My name's Aaron. I turned 50 last month. I manage a mid-sized logistics firm, been married for 27 years, and I've got two daughters, Clara, 24, and Morgan, 20. I used to think I had a pretty good read on people. I could sense tension in a boardroom before anyone spoke, sniff out a lie from 100 miles away. But when it came to my own family, I missed every sign. Or maybe I just didn't want to see them. The lead up to my 50th birthday was off, but I chalked it up to surprise party energy. You know the vibe. Hushed whispers when you enter the room, sudden shifts in conversation, locked phones, half smiles. Every time I asked what was going on, my wife, Lauren, would grin and say, "Just wait. This year will be unforgettable." Clara kept teasing, "You'll cry." In a good way. Even Morgan, who normally couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it, stayed oddly quiet. It had been a rough year, layoffs at work, a minor surgery, my mom passing away in February. Honestly, I was looking forward to a little joy, something soft to land on. I hadn't had a real celebration in years. We always did more for the kids, which made sense, but I guess part of me hoped this milestone would be different, that maybe this one would be for me. The night before, Lauren kissed me goodnight early. "Get some rest," she said. "Big day tomorrow." I remember lying in bed, imagining some surprise trip. Maybe something nostalgic, back to Napa, where we honeymooned. Or a dinner with old friends. She'd mentioned reconnecting with a few. Whatever it was, it felt like something was coming. And for once, I let myself feel excited. I woke up alone. No breakfast. No card on the nightstand. No balloons. No happy birthday. No smell of pancakes or sound of the girls whispering down the hall. Instead, there was just an empty kitchen table, one used mug in the sink, and a canceled calendar invite on my phone. Birthday dinner at the Ridge, 6 p.m. Status, canceled by Lauren. No note. No explanation. Just gone. I checked our shared family calendar. Morgan had an event marked blocked, and Clara's was simply marked busy. I opened our group chat. No messages. Nothing from Lauren either. Not even a happy birthday. I stared at my phone for a long time. Tried calling once straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I'm not the type to beg for attention. By noon, I convinced myself it was still part of the surprise. Maybe they wanted me to think they forgot. Maybe I'd walk into the Ridge later and see all my friends gathered around with a cake and drinks. But 6 p.m. came and went, and I stayed home. I heated up leftover stir-fry. The rice was dry. The soy sauce had turned weirdly bitter. I sat at the kitchen island, eating cold chicken and telling myself they were just late, that maybe they'd walk in any minute, laughing about a wrong turn or a change in plans. Then, at 7:11 p.m., my brother posted a selfie. It was a group shot. Dozen people crammed together under a warm pink sky. My brother had that smug gotcha grin on his face. His caption read, "Surprise trip with the real ones." And right behind him, smiling with wind in her hair, was my wife. And both of my daughters. Even my best friend, Tom. He was the one holding the camera. They were on a beach. I recognized it immediately. Puerto Vallarta. I'd mentioned it offhand last fall, saying I'd love to go there someday. Looks like they took the hint. Just not with me. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just sat there, staring at the screen until my phone dimmed and went black. Then I stood up, walked down the hallway to the basement, and pulled out the lockbox from under the stairs. Inside was a copy of the house deed, emergency cash, and most importantly, the backup keys and remote codes for all the smart locks in the house. I spent the rest of the night changing everything. Garage codes, alarm system, keypad entries. I even disabled the garage opener tied to Lauren's car. I took her spare off the key rack, walked outside, and tossed it into the storm drain down the street. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just numb. Like the world had gone quiet and I was the last one who hadn't realized it yet. The next morning, I turned off the phone. 2 days later, when I finally turned it back on, it buzzed like a hive had nested inside it. 48 missed calls. Dozens of voicemails. Over 100 emails. "Please just hear us out. You don't understand. It's not what you think." From Lauren. From Clara. From Morgan. Even from Tom. But the one that stood out was from my brother. Subject line. I warned them this was a bad idea. I didn't open it. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down at the table. The same spot I'd sat on my birthday, alone with my stir-fry. And I finally felt something. Not sadness. Not confusion. Resolve. Because whatever they were about to tell me, whatever flimsy excuse or half-hearted apology they had lined up, It wasn't going to be enough. Not this time. And that's when I decided what to do next. 3 weeks before my birthday, Tom invited me out for drinks after work. It wasn't unusual. We'd been grabbing Friday drinks since our 20s. But something was different this time. He seemed jittery, distracted. He kept glancing at his phone, barely touched his second drink, and dodged every question I asked about work. We'd both been in the trenches together when his last client went under, so silence wasn't normal. I figured maybe he was having trouble at home. His divorce last year was rough, and I knew he'd been trying to rebuild, job, dating, the works. But every time I mentioned his ex or anything remotely emotional, he'd shift the topic. Then, toward the end of the night, he leaned back in his chair and gave me this weird half-smile. "You ever think," he said, "that people change when they think you're not looking?" I raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" He shrugged. "Just saying, sometimes the people closest to you aren't who you think they are." I laughed it off at the time. Thought maybe he was projecting. But now? Now I wonder if that was his guilt peeking through. Some last-ditch effort to give me a heads-up without actually saying the words. The next odd moment came a few days later. I was walking past Lauren's office, door cracked, her back turned. She was talking low on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but one word stopped me cold. "Transfers." Then a pause. "Yeah, but only after his birthday." No, I don't want it to get messy. My heart kicked into a sprint. I stood there, frozen. She always handled the family finances. She always said it was easier that way. And I never minded, I trusted her. We had a shared account, sure, but we also had several investment portfolios, real estate holdings, even some offshore savings from my dad's estate. I backed away before she could see me. That night, I logged into every account I could think of. Passwords had changed. Access denied. Some accounts I didn't even recognize. There was a new LLC registered under our names. I couldn't see its details. When I asked Lauren casually about it the next morning, just to test the waters, she waved it off with a breezy smile. "Oh, just some housekeeping. Consolidating stuff before tax season." I wanted to believe her. I did. But something in her tone felt off. Scripted. Like she'd rehearsed it. Still, I let it go. I didn't want to be that guy, paranoid, suspicious, the overthinking husband. So I convinced myself I was being dramatic. That maybe she was planning a surprise. Something huge. Maybe this was all leading to the best birthday of my life. Except now I knew exactly what it was leading to. A surprise trip with the real ones. That selfie replayed in my head every time I closed my eyes. Lauren in a sundress she hadn't worn in years. Clara holding a cocktail she used to mock me for ordering. Morgan with her hand slung around Tom's shoulder like they were old pals. My best friend. My wife. My kids. Gone. I kept thinking about that phrase. The real ones. Like I was fake. Like I wasn't enough. I didn't tell anyone what I discovered. Not yet. Instead, I went to work like everything was normal. I smiled through meetings, handled logistics for a warehouse expansion, even helped one of my employees negotiate a higher salary. No one suspected a thing. But under the surface, I was building something. Quietly. Methodically. I hired a private investigator. Someone I'd worked with once before when a partner tried skimming off the top of a freight deal. She was good, subtle, thorough, and discreet. I gave her Lauren's name, then Tom's, then the girls', and I asked for everything. 2 days later, she sent me a zip file. I opened it on my work computer, after hours. The folder was labeled, Aaron, Family Activity. There were bank statements, screenshots, travel confirmations, meeting logs, and then there was the kicker. A recorded phone call between Lauren and someone listed only as attorney. I played it. "Yes, once the transfer is complete, I'll be the majority shareholder," she said, clear as day. "He won't contest it. He doesn't even know what we've set up. After his birthday, it'll all be clean. The girls are on board. Tom's helping with the paperwork." My mouth went dry. This wasn't just about forgetting my birthday. This was a setup. A coup. They'd been planning this for months. Transferring ownership, moving funds, lining up legal protections, building a safety net without me. And worst of all, my own children were part of it. Every late night Lauren spent catching up on work, every time Clara giggled and said I'd cry in a good way, every phone Lauren swiped away when I walked in, they weren't keeping a surprise party. They were keeping a secret. And here's the part that really got me, Tom. The man who stood beside me at my wedding, who cried when Clara was born, who I once bailed out of jail after a bar fight in college. He was helping her take everything. I sat there at my desk, heart pounding, hands trembling, but not from sadness. From clarity. I'd seen betrayal before, but never this close. Never wrapped in smiles and birthday wishes and fake warmth. They thought I was blind, that I'd go quietly. But they forgot something. This wasn't just my birthday. It was also the day I stopped trusting them, and the day I started planning my own kind of surprise, one they would never see coming. And just when I thought I had everything I needed, I received one final email. From Morgan. Subject: Dad, please don't do anything until you hear my side. And when I opened it, I learned something that changed everything. The email was short. Way too short for the magnitude of what was happening. No greeting. No emoji. Just 10 sentences. 10 carefully chosen words that rearranged my entire understanding of the last few months. Dad, I didn't know what they were doing at first. They told me it was for your retirement. Said you were tired. Said you'd thank them. I only found out the truth 2 days ago. I tried to tell Mom, but she shut me down. Clara doesn't know I'm messaging you. Please don't answer. Not yet. But don't sign anything. Check the brown box under your side of the bed. I love you. That last line, that was what cracked me. I reread it over and over. I wanted to believe her. I needed to. Morgan had always been closer to her mom, more passive, less confrontational. She didn't like drama. But she also wasn't a liar. Not with me. Still, a part of me resisted. Because if Morgan was telling the truth, that meant she was stuck in the middle of something she couldn't control. That she might have been dragged along in their mess out of fear or obligation. Or maybe, worst of all, guilt. I stood up from my desk and walked into the bedroom. The bed hadn't been made since Lauren left. Her side was still faintly scented with her lavender lotion. I didn't linger. I crouched down and reached beneath the frame, fingers brushing dust and loose receipts, and then cardboard. A small brown shoebox. Unmarked. Untapped. Light. Inside were documents. Dozens of them. Printed emails. Handwritten notes. A few USB drives. And a small black leather planner, Morgan's, from 2 years ago. I flipped through it absently, not expecting much, until I reached the back pages. Folded and shoved into the pocket were 2 letters. One was from Lauren to someone named Richard, her attorney. It was a typed draft with edits in red ink. The title? Request to initiate ownership reassignment proceedings. The language was cold, clinical, like she was filing a work transfer, not tearing apart her husband's life. It detailed the process of acquiring controlling interest in the logistics firm, my firm. Said it would optimize family security long-term, especially if Aaron becomes emotionally unstable or combative. I sat down slowly. My stomach turned. She was painting me as a risk before anything had even happened. The second letter was from Morgan, dated 2 days before the trip. Handwritten. Mom said it's not a betrayal, that it's protection. But I see how she looks when she talks about the company. It's not about protecting you. It's about power. About control. I thought she was doing it for the family, but I was wrong. She's been manipulating Clara, too. Using her job offer as leverage. And Tom? He's not just helping her with legal stuff. They've been seeing each other. I think it's been months. I tried to talk to Clara, but she wouldn't listen. I feel like I'm watching a train crash in slow motion. The last line was underlined twice. I don't know what to do, Dad, but I don't want to be part of this. I sat there for a long time, just holding that letter. My breathing felt shallow. The walls seemed smaller. It wasn't just betrayal, it was strategy. They were planning a hostile takeover of my life and dressing it up as a beach vacation. And Tom? With Lauren? That hit me like a slap. No warning. Just that one sickening sentence in Morgan's letter, and suddenly everything made sense. The distance. The tension. The way he avoided eye contact when Lauren was around. The weird timing of his divorce. It all came together. This wasn't a last-minute betrayal. This was orchestrated. But they hadn't accounted for Morgan. And they sure as hell didn't expect me to fight back. I pulled out one of the USB drives from the box and plugged it into my laptop. Inside were several folders, bank logs, email chains, LLC agreements. Morgan must have been collecting this for weeks. Maybe months. Maybe ever since she noticed the shift in Clara. Maybe since she heard Lauren say the word transfers on a call. Every document was a piece of the puzzle. Hidden accounts. New company names. Wire transfers that funneled money out of joint holdings into private ones, held only in Lauren's name. There was even an updated will draft Lauren had drawn up without my signature. And a spreadsheet titled, Asset Split, Projection Q3. Like I was a balance sheet to be optimized. I closed the laptop. Walked to the window, stared out at the yard, empty and still. That's when the doorbell rang. I didn't answer it right away. I stood there for a minute, watching the shadow behind the frosted glass. Then I walked over and opened it. Standing there, clutching a small duffel bag and wearing a hoodie pulled tight over her face, was Morgan. Her eyes were red. No makeup. No smile. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, stepped aside. She walked past me, paused in the foyer, and looked around like she expected everything to collapse. "I didn't go," she said, turning back. "I was supposed to." I packed, got in the car. But when we hit the highway, I told them I forgot something and asked to be dropped off at campus. Said I'd Uber to the airport later. She swallowed hard. They didn't even question it. I led her into the kitchen, poured her some water. She didn't drink it. "I'm sorry," she said finally, eyes locked on the floor. I didn't know how far it had gone. Not until I saw the contracts. And the emails. I thought it was just legal stuff. Retirement stuff. But then Clara showed me the will, and I saw how they were moving the money. That's when I started copying everything. Hiding things. She pulled her phone from her pocket and slid it across the table. "It's all backed up here too, in case anything happens." I looked at her, my daughter, the only one who hadn't turned on me, and something shifted in my chest. Not just the ache of betrayal, but the faintest flicker of hope. "Why now?" I asked. "Why come to me?" She looked up. Her eyes were sharp, determined. She wasn't a little girl anymore. "Because I thought I was going crazy. But I'm not. They are. And if you're going to fight back, you're going to need help." I nodded slowly. Then I opened my laptop and started drafting the first move of my plan. But just as we were reviewing one of the legal documents, Morgan's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, froze, then turned the screen to me. It was a text from Clara. "Dad knows. Abort the plan. Don't come back." And underneath it, a picture of our house, taken from the street, tonight. And the headlights weren't turning off. They were pulling into the driveway. Morgan's fingers trembled as she locked her phone. The blood drained from her face, and for a moment, she didn't move. Just sat frozen in the kitchen chair, staring at the front door like it was about to be kicked in. I looked out the window. There it was. A dark SUV idling at the curb. Headlights still on. I couldn't see who was inside, but I didn't need to. I already knew. They hadn't waited for an explanation. They weren't coming back to apologize. Clara had sent the message, and now Lauren was here. Maybe with her. Maybe with Tom. They didn't expect Morgan to switch sides, and now they were scrambling, probably to do damage control. Or worse. I stood up, calm and deliberate, and quietly turned off the kitchen lights. Then the hallway. The living room. Within seconds, the house was dark. I motioned to Morgan to stay quiet, and she followed as I led her down the hallway, past the den, into the garage. I hit the side panel and killed the power to the garage door. Just in case. We slipped into the basement. My office was down there, but more importantly, so was my backup setup. Years of running a business taught me to always have fail-safes. Emergency Wi-Fi router. Hidden camera feed. Battery-operated backup power. I clicked on the security monitors. One camera caught Lauren stepping out of the SUV, wearing a trench coat and looking visibly agitated. Clara stayed in the passenger seat. She was on the phone, pacing, probably trying to reach Morgan again. Tom wasn't with them. I wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Lauren walked up to the porch and rang the doorbell. No knock, no yelling. She wasn't going for drama. Not yet. This was recon. She wanted to know if I was still home, if I'd seen anything, if Morgan had told me. She waited for 30 seconds, then pulled out her phone. A moment later, mine buzzed upstairs. She tried again. Buzz. Again. Buzz. Finally, she knocked. 3 times. Hard. Morgan whispered, "She thinks we don't know." I nodded. "Let's keep it that way. For now." We watched for another minute as Lauren paced the porch. Eventually, she turned back toward the SUV, talking into her phone. Clara rolled down the window and shouted something I couldn't hear. Then they both got in and drove off. Not far, just around the corner. I knew that street. It had a cul-de-sac and one of the better views of our house. They weren't leaving. They were watching. I exhaled slowly. Then I opened the folder labeled LLC Agreements and started sorting documents. "I need you to read something," I told Morgan. Together, we reviewed every paper sheet collected. She had copies of at least 6 shell company filings, all tied back to Lauren's maiden name. She transferred portions of our investments into them over the last 8 months. One of the accounts was structured as a blind trust under the guise of long-term college funding. Ironically, Clara's name was on that one. The real kicker, though, was in a power of attorney document Lauren had drafted and forged. It had my signature, but I never signed it. She'd used it to authorize one of the major transfers into her LLC just a week prior to my birthday. That was enough. Enough to go to the bank. Enough to file charges. Enough to destroy everything they had built on the illusion that I was too trusting, too tired, or too distracted to notice. But I wasn't going to file charges. Not yet. I had something better in mind. The next morning, Morgan and I visited the office. I hadn't told anyone what was going on, not the board, not the execs, not even my assistant of 8 years. But they knew something was different when I walked in with a briefcase full of documents and a fire in my step. Morgan waited in the lobby while I held an emergency executive meeting. We sat around the oak table. I laid it all out. Quietly, calmly, I handed over the proof, the forged documents, the bank transfers, the attempt to reassign company ownership behind my back. Then I said 5 words that made the room fall silent. I'm selling my majority stake. They thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. 3 weeks earlier, before any of this reached the surface, I'd had a conversation with an international logistics group looking to expand into our region. I hadn't considered it seriously at the time. But now? Now I called their CEO personally. We negotiated for 8 hours straight. I structured the deal so cleanly, so thoroughly, that by the end of it, they were begging for my signature. I sold the company for nearly double its valuation. Then, with the proceeds already held in escrow, I transferred 10% of the final some 7 figures to a new trust, one with Morgan as the sole beneficiary. The rest? I froze. Every account tied to Clara and Lauren's names was shut down. The blind trust? Dissolved. The college fund? Liquidated. I even pulled the prepaid lease on Clara's downtown apartment. It was in my name anyway. They thought they were stealing from me. They didn't realize I'd already moved everything. Then came the final blow. The day after the sale, I filed for divorce. Lauren was served at her law office. In public. During lunch. Clara came home that night to find all her belongings boxed neatly on the front porch. I wasn't cruel. I didn't destroy anything. I even taped a note to the top box. You wanted independence. Now you have it. Tom? I sent him a single text. Glad you enjoyed the company. It's gone now. He didn't reply. Morgan stayed with me for a few weeks. We rebuilt things slowly, carefully. She hadn't been perfect, and she didn't pretend to be. But she'd done the right thing in the end. She came to me when it counted. She didn't just save me from their plan. She gave me clarity I hadn't had in years. We took a trip together later that spring. Just the two of us. We went to the coast, ate street food, rented bikes, talked like we used to when she was 10 and thought I hung the moon. One night, while watching the sun sink into the water, she turned to me and asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I miss who I thought they were, not who they turned out to be." She nodded. Me too. When we came back, I bought a new house. Something smaller, quieter. I started writing again. Nothing serious, just journals, short fiction, some essays. I stopped checking their social media. I stopped responding to the occasional message from extended family asking what really happened. Because I didn't owe them the truth. They'd all seen the photo. They all knew what side they picked. And now, they could live with it. The last message I ever got from Lauren was an email. No subject, just a line of text. Was it really worth it? I stared at it for a while. Then I clicked reply and wrote, every second. My name is Jake. I'm 27, and for as long as I can remember, my family has made it painfully clear that my younger brother, Ryan, is their favorite. He's 24, unemployed, still living at home, and has somehow convinced my parents that he's entitled to anything and everything he wants, especially if it belongs to me. Growing up, it was always the same story. I'd work hard for something and Ryan would just get a free pass. If I saved up for a new gaming console, my parents would guilt trip me into letting him use it whenever he wanted. If I got good grades, my mom would say, well, Ryan just isn't as naturally academic as you, so we don't expect the same from him. If I did chores, my dad would excuse Ryan by saying he'll do them later. Spoiler, he never did. At some point, I stopped fighting it. I moved out at 22, got my own place, and focused on building my life. I worked my way up in my job, and just recently, I decided to buy myself a brand new car, something I'd been saving up for years. It was a big moment for me, something I was really proud of. I didn't come from money, and every dollar that went into this purchase was one I had earned. The moment my parents found out, though, I should have known what was coming. It started with a casual text from my mom. Mom texted, "Hey sweetie, heard you got a new car. That's amazing. What are you planning to do with your old one?" The question itself wasn't suspicious. My old car was still in great condition, low mileage, well-maintained, and honestly, something I could have sold for a decent amount of money. But something about the way she worded it put me on edge. I hesitated before responding. "Me, not sure yet." "Why?" The reply came almost instantly. "Mom, well, Ryan doesn't have a car, and you know how hard things have been for him. We thought it would be a wonderful gesture if you gave it to him." There it was. I should have expected it, really. I could practically hear her voice in my head, the same tone she used whenever she tried to make it sound like she was just suggesting something when, in reality, she was laying down an expectation. I took a deep breath, already feeling the familiar frustration bubbling up. Mom, Ryan doesn't have a car because he doesn't have a job. He doesn't even need one. And I was planning on donating it. I had been thinking about it for a while. There was a local charity that helped single parents get reliable transportation, and it felt like a good cause, something I actually wanted to do. But as soon as I hit send, I realized I had made a mistake. The phone rang almost immediately. It was my mom. I sighed and answered. "Hey, Jake," she started, her voice already laced with disappointment. "You can't be serious. Donating it? To strangers? When your own brother needs it?" I rolled my eyes. "Mom, Ryan doesn't need it. He doesn't go anywhere. And I already made my decision." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "I cannot believe this. After everything we've done for you, you'd rather throw it away than help your own family?" I clenched my jaw. "Throwing it away? I'm giving it to people who actually need it, Mom. If Ryan really wanted a car, maybe he could get a job," and she cut me off. "Jake, that is so cruel. You know Ryan struggles with motivation. He's had such a hard time lately." Ryan's hard time was that he didn't like working. He had bounced between a few jobs in the past, but he never stuck with anything longer than a few months. Meanwhile, my parents bent over backward to make sure he never actually needed to. I kept my voice calm, but I let a bit of sarcasm slip in. "Right. A hard time sleeping in until noon and playing video games all day. Sounds rough." There was a beat of silence before she huffed. "I don't know what's happened to you, Jake. You used to be such a good son." Ah, there it was. The guilt trip. The same old script. "I guess I just got tired of being the backup plan for Ryan's laziness," I said evenly. Before she could respond, I added, "Look, I'm not changing my mind. The car's already been donated. If Ryan wants something, he can earn it like the rest of us." I hung up before she could launch into another tirade. I barely had time to breathe before my phone started buzzing again, this time from Ryan. I debated ignoring it, but I knew he wouldn't stop. With a sigh, I picked up. "You're such a selfish piece of—" "Hey, Ryan," I interrupted, my tone flat. "Let's skip the insults. What do you want?" He scoffed. "You know what I want. Mom just told me what you did. You gave away a perfectly good car? Are you insane?" I rubbed my temples. "Ryan, you didn't own that car." "I did. And I can do whatever I want with my own property." "Yeah, but you knew I needed it," he snapped. I let out a short laugh. "Ryan, you don't even leave the house." "Maybe I would if I had a car," he shot back. "Or," I said, dragging the word out, "maybe if you had a car, it would just sit in the driveway while you kept mooching off Mom and Dad." The silence that followed told me I had hit a nerve. "You're such an ungrateful fool," he finally said, voice dripping with anger. "After everything our parents have done for you." I sighed. "Ryan, this conversation is over." And just like that, I hung up again. I knew it wasn't really over, though, because within the hour, I started getting notifications. Ryan had taken to social media, airing out his grievances. He wrote this long, whiny post about how families should take care of each other and how some people just care about themselves. He didn't mention me by name, but it was painfully obvious who he was talking about. And of course, our extended family got involved. A few cousins and an aunt even jumped in, agreeing with him and calling me selfish. But then, something unexpected happened. A few people started siding with me, and that's when things really started to spiral out of control. At first, I ignored the notifications. I had already made my decision, and I wasn't about to let Ryan's temper tantrum drag me into some ridiculous online drama. But then, I started seeing the comments. Cousin Mark commented, "Wait, so your brother worked hard, bought a new car, and donated his old one to people in need, and you're mad?" Uncle Dave commented, Ryan, maybe you should try earning something for yourself instead of expecting handouts. Family friend Karen commented, I don't understand why you think you're entitled to his car. It was glorious. Ryan had clearly expected everyone to blindly take his side, but he didn't anticipate people actually using common sense. I could almost picture him sitting in his room, fuming as he realized his little pity party wasn't going the way he planned. Of course, my parents weren't going to let this go either. A few hours later, I got a call from my dad. Unlike my mom, he rarely got involved in these kinds of things, which told me they were pulling out the big guns. I sighed and answered, Hey, Dad. There was a long pause before he spoke, his voice calm but heavy. Jake, I really wish you'd reconsider what you've done. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Reconsider what, exactly? You know what he said. This whole thing. It's humiliating your brother. I almost laughed. Humiliating him? Dad, he did that to himself. He put all this on social media thinking people would defend him. Dad sighed. That's not the point. Your mother is really upset. This whole situation is making us look bad. Ah, there it was. It wasn't about Ryan struggling. It wasn't about family values. It was about appearances. Let me get this straight, I said. You don't care that Ryan's throwing a tantrum over a car that was never his. You don't care that he refuses to get a job or do anything for himself. You only care that people are seeing how entitled he is. Dad hesitated, which told me everything I needed to know. It's not that simple, Jake. It is that simple, I said, my voice sharper now. For once, I didn't roll over and let Ryan take something from me, and you don't know how to handle it. There was another long silence. Then he sighed. I really hoped you'd be better than this. I blinked. Better than what? You're acting spiteful, he said. Giving the car to charity instead of your own brother. How does that make sense? It just feels like you did it to make a point. I let out a humorless laugh. I didn't do it to make a point. I did it because I wanted to help people who actually needed it. But now that you mention it, yeah, I'd rather have set the damn thing on fire than hand it over to Ryan. His voice dropped into a warning tone. Jake, no, I interrupted. I'm done. I'm done being the backup plan whenever Ryan doesn't want to put in effort. I'm done with the guilt trips. And I'm definitely done with this idea that I somehow owe him just because you guys decided he's more important than me. Dad's voice was cold now. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? I challenged. He didn't answer right away. I could hear the tension in his breathing. Finally, he said, You're making a mistake. I scoffed. You know what, Dad? If this is a mistake, then it's the first one I don't regret. And I hung up. I felt the weight lift off my shoulders almost immediately. But the storm wasn't over yet. Because the next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages. From my parents. From relatives. Even from some people I barely spoke to anymore. And then I saw it. Ryan had escalated things. He hadn't just made another whiny post. No, this time he had gone all out. He had written a massive post claiming I had stolen the car from him. I stared at my phone in disbelief. Stolen? Was he serious? I clicked on the post, and sure enough, Ryan had gone full victim mode. I never thought my own brother would betray me like this. He knew I needed a car. He knew our parents wanted me to have it. But instead of helping his family, he selfishly gave it away, probably just to spite me. And get this, he didn't even tell me. He just snuck off and did it behind my back. I was relying on that car. I needed it. But I guess some people only care about themselves. Family is supposed to look out for each other, but I guess that only applies when he wants something. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. It had hundreds of likes and comments, and some of them were actually siding with him. I'll read some of them. Aunt Linda, wow, that's low. Family should always come first. Grandma Nancy, so disappointing, Jake. Your parents raised you better than this. Some random girl from high school, oh my God, that's so messed up. I'd be devastated. But then there were people calling him out. Cousin Mark, again, MVP, wait. So your brother stole a car that was already his? Bro, that's not how this works. Uncle Dave, also a legend, so let me get this straight. You expected a free car, didn't get it, and now you're trying to make Jake the bad guy? Entitlement at its finest. Family friend Karen, bless her heart, Ryan, if you needed a car so badly, why didn't you just save up and buy one like your brother did? I snorted. At least some people had common sense. But that didn't change the fact that half my family was turning against me. Before I could even decide how to respond, my phone started ringing again. My mom. I groaned and let it go to voicemail. Then another call came in. My dad. Then a text from my aunt. Then another from my cousin. It was nonstop. I had barely gotten out of bed, and they were already trying to wear me down. After ignoring several more calls, I finally opened my family group chat, only to see absolute chaos. Mom texted, "Jake, answer your phone." Aunt Linda texted, "This is disgusting behavior. I can't believe you'd treat Ryan this way." Grandma texted, "You need to fix this before you tear the family apart." Ryan texted, "Thanks a lot, Jake. Hope you're happy." I sighed. So this is how it's going to be. Fine. I cracked my knuckles and started typing. I replied, "Just to clarify, the car was mine. I paid for it, insured it, and maintained it with my own money. I decided to donate it because I wanted to help people who actually needed it. At no point was it Ryan's car. He just expected me to give it to him for free. That's called entitlement." I hit send. Mom responded almost instantly, "Jake, stop making this worse." I rolled my eyes. "Worse for who?" Aunt Linda jumped in. "Wow, so you'd rather give to strangers than your own brother?" I replied, "Yes, because strangers don't treat me like a walking ATM." Cousin Mark, absolute legend, reacted with a crying laughing emoji. Ryan, of course, had to get the last word in. "Enjoy being the selfish disappointment of the family, Jake." I chuckled to myself. Oh, he wanted to play this game? Time to turn up the heat. I went to Ryan's post, left a comment, and wrote, "Wait, Ryan, remind me again how I stole a car that was never yours?" And then I logged out. Within minutes, my phone was blowing up again. Let them scream. Because I wasn't backing down. I took a deep breath and tossed my phone onto the couch. I needed to get out of the house. It was one thing to ignore a few passive-aggressive comments, but now my family had gone into full meltdown mode over something that wasn't even theirs. The entitlement was suffocating. And the worst part? The car was still sitting in my driveway. At that moment, I made my decision. I was giving it away. Today. Not to spite them. Not as a power move. But because I had been thinking about doing this for a while. And no amount of guilt tripping or tantrums was going to change my mind. I grabbed my keys, walked outside, and stared at my old car. It was still in great shape. I had taken care of it, regular maintenance, new tires, even a deep clean before I started using my new car. And Ryan thought he could just claim it? Like some kind of reward for doing absolutely nothing? Yeah, no. I slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and headed toward a local charity that specialized in helping struggling families get reliable transportation. As I drove, I couldn't help but think about all the times Ryan had expected things to just be handed to him. He had always been the golden child. The one my parents bent over backward for. When we were kids, if he broke something, I got blamed. If he wanted something expensive, our parents found a way to get it for him. If I wanted something, I was told to earn it. I used to be bitter about it. But now, I just felt done. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the charity's lot. A woman in her 40s, wearing a blue staff shirt, stepped outside as I parked. "Hey there, can I help you?" I smiled. "Yeah, actually. I'd like to donate my car." Her eyes widened. "Really?" I nodded. "Yeah, it's in great shape. All the paperwork's up to date, and I just got new tires put on. I figured someone else might need it more than me." She was shocked. People donated cars, sure, but not usually ones in this good condition. "Well," she said, regaining her composure, "that's incredible. We actually have a single mom on our list who's been waiting for something like this. She works 2 jobs and takes the bus everywhere. This would change her life." I grinned. "Then it's hers." We handled the paperwork, and within half an hour, it was official. The car was no longer mine. And more importantly, it was never going to be Ryan's. As I took one last look at it before leaving, I could already picture my family absolutely losing their minds when they found out. I got back in my new car, took a deep breath, and started driving home. And then, because I knew exactly how this was going to go down, I pulled out my phone and snapped a quick picture of the signed donation form. Because when the storm hit, I was going to be ready. By the time I got home, the sun was beginning to set, casting a soft orange glow over the neighborhood. The car I had just donated was now a distant memory, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, mixed with a touch of guilt. I knew my family wasn't going to take this well. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the principle, how they believed I should always be the one to give, while they took and expected more from me. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a moment, trying to calm myself before stepping inside. It was only a matter of time before they showed up. I barely had time to close the door behind me when I heard the familiar sound of someone knocking. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. I knew exactly who it was. I walked over to the door and peeked through the window, and sure enough, there stood my mom, dad, and Ryan, their faces a mix of confusion and irritation. They didn't even knock again. It was more like an impatient hammering at the door, like they were expecting to burst through any second. I shook my head. Opening the door, I put on my best calm smile. "Hey, what's up?" Ryan was the first to speak, his voice laced with frustration. "Jake, come on. You didn't actually give the car away, did you?" I crossed my arms. "Yeah, I did." My mom's face instantly turned red. "What? You're kidding, right? You didn't even tell us you were thinking about doing that. That car was supposed to go to Ryan." I shrugged. "It wasn't his car. It was mine. I paid for it. I made the decision to donate it. I think someone else could benefit more from it." "You think?" My dad snapped. "It's not about what you think, Jake. It was the right thing to give it to your brother. It was supposed to be his, Jake. You know that." Ryan, who had been standing behind my parents, took a step forward, his hands on his hips. "Yeah, Jake. That's how it works. You're supposed to help your family out. We've always had your back. So why can't you just help me for once?" My mom nodded, looking me in the eyes, trying to make me feel guilty. "You know Ryan's been struggling, right? You know how hard it's been for him to get his life together. And instead of helping him, you went and gave it to strangers." I wasn't about to back down. "Not this time. I'm sorry, but Ryan's problems aren't my responsibility. I didn't ask for this kind of responsibility, and I'm not going to keep sacrificing my life for people who think everything should just be handed to them. It's his life, not mine." Ryan's face flushed bright red. "You have no idea what it's like to be me, Jake. You've never been in my shoes. I need that car." "Well, Ryan," I said, leaning against the door frame with a calmness I didn't even know I had, "maybe you should try working for it. Just like I did." My dad shook his head. "That's not fair. You're supposed to be a family. Why can't you just help him out?" "I can't believe you'd do something so cold." I felt my jaw clench. "I did help. I paid for that car. I could have just sold it for a couple grand. But instead, I donated it to someone who actually needs it. Someone who doesn't think the world owes them a free ride." There was a moment of silence, the tension hanging thick in the air. Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked like he was about to explode, but instead, he just stood there, glaring at me. "You're unbelievable," he finally spat. "I can't believe you'd do this to me. After everything our parents have done for you. You're nothing but a selfish jerk." I took a deep breath and looked at them all, my parents, my brother, who had always expected things to be handed to him. I realized in that moment that they had been making me feel guilty for so long, as though I owed them something. And I didn't. I didn't owe them a thing. "This isn't about you, Ryan. Or you, Mom and Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is about me finally doing what I wanted to do. I don't owe anyone my time, my money, or my resources anymore. I made a choice, and it wasn't to cater to anyone's expectations. If you can't accept that, then, well, I guess we'll just have to leave it at that." Ryan's eyes flared with anger. "This isn't over, Jake. You'll regret this. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. You'll see." I didn't flinch. "Go ahead," I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Tell everyone I gave a car to someone who needed it more. I'm sure they'll be so mad." With that, I took a step back and started closing the door. But my mom put her hand out, blocking the door. "Jake, don't you dare," she said through gritted teeth. I looked at her, unamused. "Mom, this is done. You've had your chance to be part of my life on my terms. But this is my decision, and you're not going to bully me into changing it." Her hand dropped from the door, and she looked defeated. "I don't know who you are anymore," she muttered. I closed the door softly but firmly, locking it behind me. As I leaned against the door, I could feel my heart racing, my pulse hammering in my ears. I knew this wasn't the end. There was no way they were just going to let this slide. But for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. Sure, I was expecting the fallout, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. I had made a choice for me, a choice that didn't involve constantly sacrificing myself for people who felt entitled to everything I had worked for. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just existing in their expectations. I was living on my terms. But as the hours passed, the weight of the situation started to settle in. I couldn't stop thinking, did I make the right decision? Did I overstep? Was I too harsh? Or was I finally standing up for myself after years of feeling like I owed everyone everything? What do you all think? Was I right to give the car away to someone who truly needed it? Or should I have just handed it over to Ryan and kept the peace? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts.